Okay. Now, Manson framed these murders to look like Black Panthers had done them. Now, nobody bought that, right? But it could have been possible. Okay. Let's speculate a little bit. We do have the tinfoil hats on.
Mm-hmm.
Could Manson have been directed to do this to make the Black Panthers look bad?
Welcome to Creepalachia. We are sweating already. It is our first tinfoil hat show. I'm joined by the wonderful Tom Reiser.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's fantastic to be here once again at Creepalachia. I'm honored and excited to talk to you about the craziest stuff that I can think of, but it's actually verifiable. Like, this stuff is documented, right? Like, I have a tinfoil hat on right now, but I'm believing what I'm saying.
Well, this is our resume. Like, people just got to know that we know what we're talking about. Whoever knew our 40s would be so glorious. But yeah, we're talking Charles Manson today for the first episode. Basically, what this show is, if you don't know, it's our first one, so we don't really know either. But it's where we put tinfoil hats on and go deep into the granular surface of the rabbit hole on the particular subject that has been chosen. And today is Charles Manson. And you was asking me what all I knew beforehand. I'm kind of going into these cold. I'll tell some jokes and, ask some questions from the average viewer perspective. The only thing I know, Tom, is that Charles Manson was put in prison for convincing people to murder Sharon Tate, and I don't remember the other name. And I know she was pregnant, and there were some words wrote in blood and, cult vibes, and these women shaved their heads at the trial. That's pretty much it.
All right. So my primary source for all of this information is Tom O'Neill's book, Chaos. Okay. If you have not heard of this book, Tom O'Neill, he had a co-writer that helped him out. And Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the secret history of the 60s. If you have not read this book, I highly recommend it. It will absolutely blow your mind. I'm going to give you the abridged version of this story here today. So,
spoiler alert?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Now, I'm not going to be able to go into everything because there is so much here within the confines of this book that it's mind blowing. And it's good that you only know cursory and like, you don't even know. Did you know that there were more murders?
Oh, yeah. No.
Okay.
Should we start it with, you giving us an overview for someone who doesn't know really much about Charles Manson? What is the typical narrative of him and what happened? And then we'll break it out from there.
Okay. So I'm glad you said that. That's what I prepared for. So what the official story is, Vincent Bugliosi, something like that. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his last name. I'm probably gonna just murder it. He's dead, so it's fine.
Pun intended.
So he was the deputy district attorney on this case, right? And he wrote the definitive book on these murders called Helter, Skelter. And this is the sort of official document that people have followed for, until this book came out in, I think, 2018, 2019. It actually is the number one selling true crime novel of all time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Really?
Yes.
I can believe that.
Yeah. And
You could pick it up on Amazon for $12.75 for the
right.
paperback.
It's mostly fiction.
Right. Oh, okay. So it's that means
that's
fake,
what
right?
that's yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
That's what Tom O'Neill says anyway, and he's got the documentation to back it up. So the official kind of story of Charles Manson. So now there are 4 different accounts of what happened. The autopsy reports don't match what actually happened to the victims. The killers don't agree on who did the killing. So who knows, right?
And the killers were Texas. What's the guy's name?
Tex Watson. Now I don't have a list here of all the killers. I will go into who did what at different times here. So
perfect.
Stay with me, okay? Now, Tex Watson was an Eagle Scout and the captain of his high school football team in West Texas. The night of the murders, he climbed the pole and slashed the phone lines. Okay? The first victim, Stephen Parent, was an 18-year-old who had been visiting the caretaker in the guest house to sell him a clock radio. Yes, that's Tex Watson there, looking kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, pretty typical.
He's got
dude's walking the sidewalk in the county.
Right. Oh, for sure. I mean, or maybe, downtown here in Beckley.
Sure.
So he climbed the poles and slashed the phone line so nobody could call the cops. Stephen Parent was an 18-year-old who had been visiting the caretaker in the guest house to sell him a clock radio. Now, Tex shot him in the driveway as he was trying to activate the gate to leave. He shot him 4 times in the driveway. No one in the house hears the shots, apparently. Wojtek Frykowski is a 32-year-old Polish immigrant and an aspiring filmmaker. He was asleep on the couch. Tex leaned over and said, "I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's business."
That's where the Rob Zombie line came from the Devil's Rejects. Wow, I didn't. Mind
yes,
already
sir.
blown. Keep going.
Yes, sir. And if you remember, that's what they say when they go into the house on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well. Although it's the wrong house, right? That's straight from the official, report. They tie him up, and his girlfriend, Abigail Folger, she's an heiress to the Folgers coffee fortune. Okay, so she's the Folgers Folger, right? She was reading a book and just waves at the ladies as they walk down the hallway. And Susan Atkins just waves back, right? Jay Sebring, who was a hairstylist, was talking to his pregnant ex-girlfriend, Sharon Tate, on a bed. Of course, Tate was 8.5 months pregnant at the time. Sebring tried to bargain with him, saying they could see that she was pregnant. Tex shot him and then stabbed him repeatedly. And we're talking 20-some stab wounds in some of these folks. They were brutally murdered without guilt or remorse. Atkins kept saying, "I felt blank." She felt nothing, no emotion.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was gonna say fill in the blank.
No, like
Okay.
she had no emotion. There was no hate. There was no love. There was no remorse.
Yeah.
Right.
And laugh disclaimer. I'm gonna make jokes. So
sure. I mean,
I'm sorry.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it's very sad.
I mean, we have tinfoil hats on.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, reportedly, okay, Roman Polanski was a famous director in the 1960s, okay? He was married to Sharon Tate. He was in London shooting, I think, something about a dolphin It was a film about a dolphin. I can't remember exactly the title.
Okay.
And he had been discussing a friend's death. And reportedly he set Day of the Dolphin. Yes.
The Day of the Dolphin.
I've never seen it.
44% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Evidently he never finished it, and Mike Nichols must have finished it, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Whoops. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll dive into that. Sorry.
So, yeah, evidently, I didn't know that because I hadn't seen that film, and it didn't come out till 1973. There we go.
Yeah.
Originally going to be directed by Roman Polanski, right?
Well, she probably was murdered during it, and he had to drop
yes.
it out.
Yes. Yeah. And so the night they were murdered, he said to Roman Polanski said this to a friend of his, and he said, "Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, who will be the next to go?" And he was talking about a friend's death. And evidently someone called right at that moment to tell him that his wife and a bunch of his friends had been murdered in his home in Los Angeles. Weird. So now that's, I think, 3 or 4 dead at the Tate residence. Sharon Tate, her baby, Abigail Folger, and Wojtek, where is it at? Frykowski. 4 dead at this scene. Now, they wrote Helter Skelter. Now, I think that was actually at the LaBianca residence, the Helter Skelter. But they wrote Death to Pigs and Rise on the wall in blood. And then it said pigs on the front door in Sharon Tate's blood. And so now the next night, because there were murders 2 nights in a row. Okay. Now, the next night, they added Clem Grogan, 18, and Lulu Van Houten, former homecoming princess, and the one and only Charles Manson himself, to the original 4, which was Susan Atkins, Leslie Van Houten, Tex Walton, and man, I thought I had that in there.
That's all right.
I'm missing one. Google it real quick.
Sure. Yeah. So Manson family?
Yeah.
Murders. Okay. Clan. All right.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Oh, I'm binging. Hopefully Bing will get it.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Whew. I think a part of my problem is I'm sweating and my brain is cooking right now.
We got to keep it going. It's got to be baked. A boiled brain.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Hold on.
These are all the members.
So Susan Atkins, she was there. Bobby Beausoleil, he actually killed someone, and we're going to go into that here in a little while. He stabbed Gary Hinman, which actually happened before the Tate LaBianca murders. And reportedly, Bobby Beausoleil called Manson from jail to let him know that he was going to have to do something to get him out. So, and I think that's new information that came out in this book.
Right.
Now, Linda Casbian, okay, she was the one that drove the car and was served as a lookout in the first one, okay, at the Tate house. But we'll go into what she did at the LaBianca residence later. Patricia Krenwinkel, I think, was there. Yeah. That was the 4th, I do believe.
She looks like the young kid on the Brady Bunch.
Bobby?
Yeah, she looks like Bobby. All right.
So the next night, they added Clem Grogan and Lulu Van Houten. Okay.
That died or were murdered.
No, that these were Manson family
Gotcha. Okay.
people that went on the second murder the next night, and they're not there on this Wikipedia list.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, take Wikipedia for what it's worth.
Right. Yeah, somebody messed around there and deleted them or something. So now Manson chose Watson and Krenwinkel again as his executioners. This time he added Van Houten to the mix. So she'd never so much as struck another person before that night.
Mm-hmm.
He told him to kill everyone in the house. Leno LaBianca stabbed 26 times. War carved in his stomach with a carving fork sticking out beside it. Rosemary, his wife, suffered 41 stab wounds, many after she died.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote Helter Skelter on the wall. They misspelled it, Healter, Skelter. It's actually spelled Helter, Skelter. That's a Beatles song, if you're not aware. He was Manson, meaning he was enamored with the White Album, and they would take high doses of acid and listen to the White Album on repeat, evidently, at times. And then this kind of lent itself to lore, right? That the Beatles were the locusts that came out of the bottomless pit in Revelations, right?
Sounds about right.
The end of days, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. Now,
I mean, yeah,
that's what Manson says. Anyway, so also Writing in Blood, Rise, and Death to Pigs. So this was a turning point in America, right? Before these brutal murders, the hippie movement and hippies in general they weren't scary. Nobody was scared of the local hippie. He's probably stoned and, he wears his hair long, but who cares? He's harmless. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then overnight, the attitudes in America changed about the hippie movement because of these murders. And once this story came out, and that this, free love, free drugs movement that Manson was kind of about, and they were all hippies, they all had long hair, they wore disheveled clothes, they lived communally out on the Spawn Ranch, and, all had records as long as your arm, and we'll go into that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a turning point in America, because before then hippies were, they were harmless. Nobody, they were,
they're generally harmless.
Harmless.
Mm-hmm.
So
a few bad apples.
Right. Now a little history on Manson. So that's kind of the official story, mm-hmm. okay, of what happened. And we'll go into why Bugliosi says he did these things right here in just a minute. Let's go into who Charles Manson actually was. Mm-hmm. Okay. Manson was in and out of boys' homes and prisons since he was 8 years old. He did 10 years in a prison outside of D.C. after he turned 18. So he wasn't released from federal prison until, he was 28, 29. And so he had been institutionalized. His mother was a drug addict and had, various affairs with different men, and he constantly got into trouble. And since 8 years old, he had been in one institution or another across America. Right. So he was just an ex-con at this point. But he did do 10 years in a federal prison right outside of D.C. Okay. Now, Manson was an avid follower of the Beatles, right? And here is some of the reasons, right, that Bugliosi says Manson ordered these murders or participated in them himself. And so Manson was an avid follower of the Beatles. He believed that they were speaking to him through the lyrics of their songs. Helter Skelter was the title of the Beatles song, and to him, this meant that African Americans were going to rise up against the white establishment and murder the entire white race.
Oh, he was racist? I didn't realize that.
Really?
Well, I mean, I know he had the swastika on his forehead. That's a problem.
That's a
big problem.
That's a good indicator that he might be racist, right?
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense.
All right,
now.
I got it. You know, the CIA controls me anyway, so I might as well.
You doing it? I'm holding still. Holding still.
My brain, I can't think right now.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to shield your thoughts.
Well, they're trying. You know, maybe I already have the chip in my brain.
Yeah,
and it's just like bouncing around in there, right?
Naturally,
and it's like warming this thing up to a fever pitch. Yeah. Okay,
take that thing off. Take you a little break. Put it back on later.
Okay. All right.
We got us a break.
You know, it's fine.
I'm gonna leave. I'm going the whole time. I'm gonna be dripping thick sweat beads.
Just sweat. I don't know how many of you out there have actually tried to wear these things, but
well, Creepalachia tinfoil hats are heavy insulated. So.
I mean, that must be heavy duty tinfoil over there.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right. What was I talking about?
You were talking about racism in America and Charles Manson.
So he believed that Helter Skelter was about the race war and the fact that the black folks in America would be rising up and murdering all of the white race around the world, evidently, right? And that this would happen with the exception of Manson and his chosen followers, who intended to escape Helter Skelter by going to the desert and living in the bottomless pit.
Okay.
I'm not sure where the bottomless pit is, but this was all derived from Revelation 9. And it was reported that Manson he knew the Bible like verbatim. He could quote it just like that. You ask him a chapter and verse, he could almost say it back to you verbatim. You know, which maybe he got that in some kind of boys' home, or maybe he's just interested in the Bible. I don't know. Now, his followers used to say that he was Jesus and the devil in one man, which is, so the way things worked at the Spawn Ranch, right? Manson would feed his followers LSD for days on end. So he would keep them awake for 2-3 days at a time, tripping acid, probably on a host of other things, right? And he would reprogram them. How someone that led a life inside and outside of prison, in and out of prison his whole life, where did he learn this? How did he run over this skill?
Saturday morning cartoons.
That might have been it. I hear they got the TV in the joint, so who knows?
Well, you remember Turmoil in the Toy Box? It would talk about this is what they were talking about, man, trying to prevent this stuff. But anyway,
so now all of his followers received the death penalty eventually. Okay. Now, not a lot of them were executed. A lot of them had long stays of execution.
The followers that were in the murder.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because there was about 30 of them. Okay. There was only 7 involved in these murders.
Okay.
Not including Manson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which he wasn't at the murders.
Well, he was at the second one.
He was at the second one. Okay, I didn't.
He was there. He was there, and actually, he is the one that gained entrance into the La Bianca residence. And there was a couple. They were in their 40s, I do believe, early 50s, maybe. Mr. LaBianca owned a supermarket and did rather well. And so Manson entered their residence and tied them up and then came outside and told them, go in there and do what you need to do. Right.
Went out and said, "Hey, Jude, just go inside.
Yeah,
no.
Murder everybody.
Yeah. Murder everyone.
Don't quit your day job.
Yeah,
buddy. You're.
I already quit 3 of them. So.
All right. I think you can make it work. I think you can make it work, buddy. I mean, your track record's pretty good. So. The motive of the murders were wearing thin, right? They killed the folks at Celio Drive to instill fear in a record producer named Terry Melcher and to ignite a race war. This is the motive of the murders, according to Bugliosi, the prosecutor in the case.
Right.
And so
this sounds made up, Tom. Isn't LSD supposed to make you chill? I mean, I don't know. I've never done it.
Well, it does in most people, right? But the thing is, the government has been studying LSD since the 1950s. And in the beginning, it was a vehicle to try to influence the minds of people because of the Cold War. They were afraid that the Soviets were doing these and the Koreans, they were doing these mind control experimentations. They were trying to influence people to do things that they maybe wouldn't do normally outside of their moral code. Change memories was one of their goals. To take a memory that you had maybe as a child and replace it with a new memory of their choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they studied this drug throughout the 50s and the 60s and into the 70s. And they found out that a certain cross-section of people were highly susceptible to manipulation under this drug and would completely change their personalities for good or for bad, right? Depending on how you do it, right? And it's kind of a set and setting kind of a thing. If it's, chill and nice and we're just listening to some Grateful Dead, right? And everybody's cool. Nobody's getting upset. It's generally a good time, right? But with any psychedelic, if you anything you introduce into this environment when you are on psychedelics, they can turn on you. And you've heard of people having bad trips.
Oh yeah, it'll
Right?
amplify any feeling times 100.
Right.
And then it's up
Yes.
to you to control those feelings.
Right. And a lot of times you can't, because you can't tell what is real and what is not.
Right.
So, and that's the thing, right? And so, and that's sort of why Manson would feed his followers this massive amount of LSD. And I'm sure it started out all chill and everybody's cool. And then, Charlie gets up and starts preaching about the race war and revelation, and that the world's going to end. I mean, imagine, one, you are sleep deprived. You haven't been to sleep in 3 days. Now, that alone can give you hallucinations and alter your state of mind and body, right? And so when you introduce a host of other drugs, psychedelics, I mean,
The Yellow Submarine.
yeah, anybody can be fiddled with, right?
Sure, yeah,
and then some people are very, very highly susceptible to manipulation under those conditions.
Gotcha.
Is what they found, right? Now,
He then started
it's just-
Walmart.
yeah, and we've went there every week ever since 1969. So now let's go into a little bit about Tom O'Neill. Okay, so Tom O'Neill, this guy, he was a feature writer, right? He mostly wrote about Hollywood, and he would do interviews with celebrities and this kind of thing. And he was kind of in between magazines in 1999. Okay. He was living in LA, and a old editor of his gave him a call, and he said, I need you to do a little story on I think was the 30th anniversary of the Manson murders and how they affected Hollywood. And that was the original story, was just find out how it affected Hollywood. And it was supposed to be 3 or 4 pages in Premiere magazine, I believe. And so he started looking into this, and nobody would really talk to him but Bugliosi. He tried to, contact Candace Bergen, who was a girlfriend or wife of Terry Melcher at one point, and actually lived at the Celio house before Tate and Polanski. And nobody would really talk to him. So as and here's a fun fact for you that I know you're going to love. Okay. Bugliosi had a hairless cat.
Oh, that's a good kid. That's good. Yeah.
And Tom O'Neill, visits Bugliosi's house several times over the courses of years. And I just saw that. I saw that, and I was like, he's going to love that old Vince had some hairless cats. But anyway,
tie-in.
Yeah, tiny,
Yeah,
hairless cats. Weird stuff happens around hairless cats, evidently.
Circle of life.
Yeah. So Tom O'Neill starts seeing holes in Helter Skelter, the book. Okay, why hadn't the police cracked the case much sooner? Because on one hand, you had the Tate LaBianca murders. Now, Gary Heineman was killed a week before that, and with a knife. They wrote something on the wall in blood, and they convicted. They had Bobby Beausoleil in custody, right? So they thought that wasn't related to the Tate murders at Celio Drive. Then somehow they didn't put it together that the LaBianca murders were connected for another 2 months. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, 2 different sets of detectives were assigned to these murders. Maybe something about jurisdictions, but come on. They were stabbings in the middle of the night. People wrote on the walls similar things in all 3 places. Okay. So why hadn't the police made this connection right away that all 3 of these murders were connected? Now, they had a Manson family associate in custody. Okay.
Which one? Tex?
Bobby Beausoleil.
Bobby Boucher.
Yeah.
The water boy.
Yes.
Got it.
They had the water boy, and Mama told him to do it.
Mama knows.
Yeah. The devil.
H2O. Which I'm
drinking.
Good timing, yeah.
Yeah. I try to drink it. People already look at me like I'm crazy when I don't have the tinfoil hat on. And then I bring out the gallon of water, and I'm like, I'm trying to get a gallon a day, man.
Yeah, flush it out, man.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress.
You're doing good.
So they had these 3 murders and nobody connected them within the police department, supposedly. Okay. Now, what about the caretaker at Celio Drive? He was in the guest house and saw and heard nothing. Nothing. Abigail Folger ran outside, out the back, until someone grabbed her and stabbed her and then drug her back into the house. There were gunshots, right? Tex Watson shot, what's his name? Sebring, the hairdresser. He shot him in the house, and the caretaker heard nothing.
What time was this?
It was the middle of the night, but the guy had just had a visitor. If you remember, the guy at that was shot at the driveway was there to sell him a clock radio. So he had just had a visitor. Now,
at that late?
We're talking Hollywood.
I don't know.
There might have been something else going on there.
I swear
I don't judge.
I mean, it's fine, it's whatever. But like clock radios in the middle of the night, whatever.
So anyway, but evidently this guy William Garretson did not hear anything. And if Manson wanted to teach Terry Melcher a lesson, why kill people unrelated to him? Other than that, the fact that they live at the same address. Because Manson showed up on Celio Drive. Now, you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when Manson showed up and asked, I think of Jay Sebring, he talks to Jay Sebring. I'm not sure that's who he talked to when he went there, but that happened. That Manson went there looking for Terry Melcher and was told Terry didn't live there anymore.
Right.
He knew good and well that Terry didn't live there. So why would he kill a bunch of people in a house to scare Terry Melcher when Melcher wasn't even there? He knew he wasn't there, right? So those were the 3 big questions that Tom O'Neill had at the outset. And this thing kind of snowballed for Tom O'Neill because he kept uncovering bits and pieces and bits and pieces and bits and pieces of things that were connected to this case. And his original magazine article was supposed to be due on the anniversary in 1999. This book didn't come out until 20 years later. He worked diligently on this book for 20 years, right? Missed every deadline, finally sold a book, missed that deadline, and then I think Penguin sued him, and then, you know, he settled for something and then resold it to somebody else. So it was a long process to bring all of this to light. Mm-hmm. A lot of research, 20 years of research. He says he worked 6-7 days a week on this, interviewing people, going through government documents, talking to folks, right? So now, at the outset, William Garretson, the caretaker, was charged for the 5 murders at Celio, the Tate murders, mm-hmm. because he was there and seemingly didn't know at all what happened. And so he was charged. Now, Vitek, the Polish guy, had a friend of his, and he would come by and he would say there was strange people and wild parties at this house all the time. And he said if he could ask his friend one question, was, did you recognize any of the people that murdered you? As if those folks had been there before.
Right.
At some kind of wild party. Right. And so now Sharon Tate hated these parties. She considered leaving Polanski. Polanski, from all accounts, was an awful human being.
Oh, yeah. Well, he later got, is he the guy who got potentially charged for murder? I can't remember. We can go into that one later.
I think that's either murder or some kind of he isn't allowed in the United States anymore, I don't believe.
Yeah, we can dive into that one later. There's something with him. I'm not sure. But
there's
anyway.
Roman's Wikipedia. Maybe it's in there. I don't know.
What a rough life. But Al Pacino played him, didn't he? Is that the guy Al Pacino played in the movie?
Oh, in Once Upon a Time?
No. He played Roman Polanski in a biopic, I thought. No, who's the guy with the really crazy hair? Is that him?
I think that's Spectre?
No. Yeah, Phil Spector.
Phil Spector.
Yeah, okay, never mind. Yeah, totally different thing.
Right.
But yeah, carry on.
Yeah. All right. So now at these parties, there were kind of 4 guys involved in the drug trade around this circle of folks, right? Some who had military and intelligence backgrounds. They never seemed to get caught or have any repercussions of their actions. Now, there was an incident where one of these guys was actually dosed and raped at the Celio house. And in fact, one of the 4 guys went and picked him up and brought him to Mama Cass's house, which he was dating Mama Cass at the time, and chained him to a tree so he wouldn't go to the Celio house and kill everyone there. And then they proceeded to leave the country to Jamaica to have this guy cool off for a while. Okay.
What a day.
Which is, it's wild.
Yeah.
And they said, just in case anything happens there. Now, Jay Sebring was a hairstylist kind of to the stars at that point. He was an ex-boyfriend of Sharon Tate, and for some reason just still hung out with Sharon Tate all the time.
Right.
Lived at the house, in fact, when Roman Polanski was not there. Okay. And he there he is.
Is this both of
them? Yep, that's both of them right there.
Okay, so I got a picture of Sharon Tate.
Yeah, that was assumedly when they were dating. I don't know, but the night of the murders, he was sitting on her bed, and she was in a nightgown, like a bikini type nightgown deal.
Mm-hmm.
She was 8.5 months pregnant, but still. It's kind of weird, right? Anyway, it was the 60s.
Who doesn't do that? Is my question.
It was the 60s. Maybe they were a little more free than, most. Now, Sebring had an understudy because Sebring had this deal, and he was kind of the first guy to have a barbershop inside of his home. And that he would travel to different places, and he would have like a barber's chair and things set up in back rooms, like in Vegas and different places to cut people's hair.
Mm-hmm.
And evidently, the haircuts cost $20. Okay, which in 1969 was about 20 times the amount that the random guy would get a haircut, right?
Right.
And so he had an understudy. His name was Little Joe. Okay.
From Bonanza?
Yeah. That was him.
Okay.
Shortly after the murders.
This is getting intense. All right.
Yeah. And Little Joe's involved.
Yeah.
We've just hit the fan, y'all.
Michael Landon showed up. He's,
It's possible.
Yeah. The LSD caused his cancer. I'm sorry. Michael Landon, I love you. Rest in peace. Go ahead.
Now he would travel to Vegas with him, and he was kind of his understudy, right? And right after the murders, he got a call from a reported mobster, okay, in Vegas. That said, don't worry, Joe, you're going to be all right. Now, the mobster, his name was Barron. He was somehow connected to General Curtis LeMay. He was a legendary fighter pilot who implemented the carpet bombing of Japan during World War II. He had served as chief of staff of the U.S. Air Force under Presidents Kennedy and Johnson. So
can we just acknowledge what crazy lives some people live? Like, I mean, it's just like, oh, what do I want for dinner this evening? And this dude's like, I want to figure out how to mass bomb Japan and cause death in the most effective way possible.
Right. And then you're the chief of staff for Kennedy and Johnson. Imagine what that life is like, right?
Yeah, I like just worrying about how my golf game is.
Well, he might have had time to do that too. Who knows?
Yeah, probably.
And okay, so now that's and there's little side roads here everywhere. Okay, and that's kind of the way this book works. Is that he'll go on little side trips. Okay. And talk to Sebring's guy, and then he'll talk to this person, and then he'll talk to that person. But and right now I'm the guy in the meme, with the cigarette and all the stuff behind him, and where I'm trying to bring all of this together, right?
Sure.
In some kind of a. Am I making sense at all right now?
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's going to take a few listens of this episode, but I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay, good.
And it's a lot, but
I've only scratched the surface.
yeah, I mean, I highly suggest someone take a puff of that medical marijuana vape and let's free our minds.
Yeah. Oh, and we've only begun. Okay.
Subscription, of course, or prescription.
Sure.
And subscription. All right, go ahead.
So, all right. I mentioned Terry Melcher before. He was a record producer, right? He produced songs like Turn, 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 right? Everywhere, turn, turn, turn. Yeah. Like, he was actually Doris Day's son.
Pillow Talk?
Doris Day.
She was in Pillow Talk.
Was it?
Oh,
I don't
movie.
know. I haven't seen it.
Keep going. Rock Hudson, her, I think. Anyway, go ahead.
But I've just heard of Doris Day. I don't think I've ever seen any films that she was in.
Dude, I just cold called that in 3 seconds. Look at that.
But evidently she was like the biggest star in the world at some point.
Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah. And so Terry Melcher was actually Doris Day's son. Now, Terry Melcher knew and even lived with members of the family, and may have been convinced to lie on the stand by Bugliosi about how extensive his knowledge was of Manson and the family. And to this day, and I think Melcher is actually dead at this point, but until his death, he denied knowing them very well. And Melcher actually met Manson and traveled to the Celio house on occasion. So Manson had been to the Celio house before. I mean, we talked about that. He went there looking for him later. Now, there's a song called "Look at Your Game, Girl," right? So Manson was he was a songwriter and a singer. Did you know this?
Yes, I did know this. I've heard some of his music.
Okay.
It's not great.
Well,
It's fine.
He did what he could, I guess. Now, the Beach Boys did record one of Manson's songs. Credited to Dennis Wilson, though. It's called Never Learn Not to Love. Manson was paid $300 for it, but of course, that's not the way that works.
Is he on the writer credits?
No.
Okay.
It's credited to Dennis Wilson, but it's well known that Manson wrote the song.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, Dennis Wilson picked up, I think it was Tex Watson on the PCH one day. Okay. And this is how he met the family. All right. And we're talking Beach Boys, Dennis Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you familiar with the yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they went like psychedelic and weird, in the mid 60s, right? After the Pet Sounds and anything in that area, it's very weird. And well, it may have been that he got involved with the family. Okay. So Dennis Wilson picks up Tex Watson on the PCH one day, and then he brings Manson and his girls to Dennis Wilson's house. Okay. And they pretty much set up camp at Dennis Wilson's house. And they lived there for almost a year. Okay. Now, there was wild parties. He had to pay upwards to like $100,000 a month to keep up these 30 wild people just running around his house. Now, there was all kinds of women, there was all kinds of drugs, and there was wild parties. And Manson had these women convinced to just do whatever any of the males in the area needed to happen. Okay? That was how he kind of programmed his girls. All right. And they used that to, get inroads in these Hollywood circles. Okay. So he got a little tired of footing this $100,000 bill every month. And Wilson left his house in the middle of the night.
$100,000.
Yes.
Dude, that's like...
Yeah, imagine 1968 money.
That's Diddy numbers.
Yeah. Well, we're talking Beach Boys.
Yeah, that's the
okay. The Beach Boys were a giant
they were
group in the 50s and the 60s, okay? And owned California for sure, right? And so he left the eviction of the family to his landlord, but still bragged about his affiliation with the Wizard, as he called Manson, a year later in interviews.
So he was that known? Like
yeah.
just this random hippie out in the desert?
Yes.
Getting all these inroads?
Yeah.
Wow.
People knew who Charles Manson and the family were. Okay. And so he got a meeting with Terry Melcher out of this Dennis Wilson association. Okay. And Manson knew that this was his biggest shot at making it in the recording industry, was this very powerful and talented Terry Melcher producer, right? Not just a rock star who knew friends, right? But somebody that could produce his music and make him rich and famous, right? But Melcher reportedly stood up to Manson when he invited him to Spawn Ranch. And, Manson went looking for him, right? Melcher didn't leave Encilio anymore. Melcher finally went out to Spawn Ranch to audition Manson for a record deal. And he was very impressed, especially with the theatrical idea of it all, because Charlie would play and his girls would fill in harmonies and things, right? And there was campfires and the desert and, all of this. And he said, well, I'm not really interested in recording you, but I'm going to send somebody out here to do a little documentary, because this is quite crazy, right? And there is documentary footage of Charles Manson and the family at Spawn Ranch that you could probably pull up right now.
Yeah, I'll do that while you're talking.
Okay. So now, they went out there and shot this footage, but Terry wasn't really interested in this is it.
I don't know how much of this.
No,
we'll show a little
that's
bit
not
of
the. Is that the actual family there
inside Spawn Ranch?
Yeah, that might be him.
Shout out.
This might be. Well, that's 1969.
I don't think.
I think this is after the murders.
Oh,
right?
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll keep looking.
Yeah, that's the Celio house right there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep looking. Shout out to ITN Archive on YouTube. But yeah.
So, they went out there and shot this documentary, but nothing really, happened with it. And now, then we kind of go into another kind of string, that we're going to try to pull in and connect here. So Charles Manson had shot what he thought was a Black Panther, a man named Lotsapapa Bernard Crow. Okay, was his government name, right? Mm-hmm. But they called him Lotsapapa. And evidently there was a drug deal gone bad, and Manson shot him. He thought he had killed him. And so...
Oh, Black Panther Party?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just did a video about big cats, and I was thinking like it was a hunting accident. All right. Go ahead.
No, the Black Panthers were a big presence in the late 60s, gotcha. Right? Mm-hmm. And if you're a racist, that might terrify you, right? That these folks are standing up for their rights and they're not going to take this BS anymore, right? And we might shoot you before you shoot us, right? That was kind of their attitude. Mostly they, just wanted to give kids free lunch and stand up for their rights, and they would exercise their Second Amendment rights and would be armed, right? And that terrified, people who
well, gives them fuel for the race war talk.
Exactly.
Right.
And so
go ahead, rip it. Sneeze.
Do
it.
That couldn't do it. All right. Okay. That'll come back. So
he shot a Black Panther.
So what he thought was a Black Panther. He wasn't really even a Black Panther.
Oh, okay.
It was just, it was the style of the day, right? Maybe the black beret and the leather jacket, right? He might have looked the part when Manson shot him, but he wasn't really a Black Panther. He was just a low-level drug dealer.
Gotcha.
And so Manson got it in his head that the Black Panthers were going to come and retaliate at Spawn Ranch. And he had family members set up at every road going into the ranch. He had snipers on the mountains. He was ready to go. He thought the Black Panthers are going to come any day and try to take me out. And so they were, the whole family was very, very paranoid that this was going to happen, because Charlie thought he had killed a Black Panther, when in fact the guy's fine. He was okay. He lived through it. So now, after Charles Manson was arrested, okay, for the murders of the Tate and LaBianca families, Dennis Wilson fell into a deep depression, right? Spurring his problems with drugs and alcohol. He told his authorized biographer, quote, "I know why Charles Manson did what he did. Someday I'll tell the world. I'll write a book and explain why he did it. He never got the chance. He drowned in 1983. He was wasted on a boat, dove off the boat, never came up, right? So
that's not a suspicious death, really?
Well,
I mean, it is kind of,
maybe. But
he did have like 15 years to write the book.
He did, but the guy was a mess, right? I mean, he had his own problems with reality. Reportedly, I remember seeing it was a TV movie, I think, about the Beach Boys, and it went into as much as they could in a TV movie about how he had problems with drugs and reality in general. Now, so this is interesting. Okay. So Terry Melcher moved back into the Celio house after those murders and rarely left the property. He shows up at neighbor's house wearing Frykowski's clothing and would be very drunk. So Bugliosi reports that Dean Morehouse lived at Celio between Melcher and Tate. And this is completely false. Morehouse was in prison at the time. And when O'Neill confronts him about it, he says Vince was supposed to take care of all that. Now it's resurfacing. And so there is constantly these little things that come out that are completely false about the official narrative. The fact that Terry Melcher actually went out to Spawn Ranch after the murders. He was seen there several times. And why would he go back out there if the whole point of these murders was to scare him? He didn't seem to be scared. Now, they erased those from the official record, but Tom O'Neill uncovered these documents and interviewed witnesses who said he was there. And so that erases that motive.
Right.
That Terry Melcher was scared of him, right? Now, so is there anything I can connect for you right now?
No. This is good. So remind people, since we're good ways through, what the original narrative is and why Manson was convicted.
So the original narrative was that Charles Manson directed these murders because he wanted to start a race war. He wanted to frame the Black Panthers for these murders. And so they would retaliate when possibly charged with these murders. I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of a little speculative. Maybe it's not. And that would kick off Helter Skelter.
Okay.
And it was sort of a double-edged sword that he wanted to intimidate Terry Melcher into possibly giving him a record deal. I don't know how that works, but that was the original motive that Vince Bugliosi presented at trial and has been the official narrative up until recently.
Why are these wrenches from Tom O'Neill so important to this that it could have changed how this went?
So it kind of shatters a big part of the narrative, right? Terry Melcher was still a friend of his. There is evidence that Bobby Beausoleil called Manson after the murder of Heinemann from the jail and said, "You have to do something." And so speculation is that they possibly did one or two of these murders to try to release him because they were copycats. They had written on the wall in blood. And so they thought, well, they've got to let Bobby out. That's maybe a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that phone call was never presented at trial. I don't understand why, right? But it's...
Are there potentially some people that should have been charged that got away?
For this, I don't think it's very clear who did it. The why is the question. And I'm trying to get there, and I'm trying not to
spoil it.
I'm trying not to miss something that may connect the dots here. And listen, my notes are nuts. I tried to read a 2,000-page book in 2 weeks again, and that's kind of why it's so.
No, you're doing great. Yeah.
All right.
Walk us through the next tidbit.
Now, let's see here. Let's skip to the juicy parts, because this is all okay. Here we go. Now, on August 16th, 1969, more than 100 officers swarmed the Spawn Ranch. Led by the organization's elite SWAT team, armed with handguns, AR-15 rifles, tear gas, they were assisted by 2 helicopters, numerous ATVs, and a fleet of some 35 squad cars. This was months before they were charged for the murders. Okay? They had been investigated on the grounds that they had been running a car theft ring, but released because of a misdated warrant. Were the police told not to pursue the family for the murders and not keep them on all the charges because they had multiple handguns, machine guns. Charlie had stolen credit cards in his shirt that fell out as he was kind of struggling with police. There were underage girls. There was 3 or 4 underage girls. All the drugs you could count. And these stolen cars. So I don't know how many charges that is, right? This was just months before the murders. How were they released?
Okay.
Why were they released?
And that's important because these murders may not have happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They would have been in jail or prison. We're talking machine guns and underage kids and drugs.
I mean, yeah.
I mean,
and they're not in West Virginia. So
exactly. Yeah, this is California, man.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, joking. I'm joking.
So,
all right. Well, and speaking of that, he was in West Virginia for a little while. Didn't he go to high school here or something?
I think so. Yeah, he had been in and out of every state, I think. Like he traveled extensively. I think he was in Virginia or West Virginia, somewhere here close.
Yeah. But yeah,
as a kid,
So they let him go.
He went to a boys' home, I think in Virginia, Southwest Virginia, right? Not West Virginia, but Southwest Virginia. I think that's.
We'll have to look this up. I know people will be mad if we don't.
There you go.
See, so it says how Charles Manson is connected to West Virginia.
He was born in Cincinnati, 1934.
Okay.
Yada, yada, yada.
Blah, 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 blah.
Marshall County.
Okay. Charles was sent to live with his relatives in Marshall County, West Virginia. Kathleen was sentenced to 10 years in prison for robbery in 1939.
Yeah.
Man, when was he born?
32, I think it said.
Okay, so it was, when he was a kid, he was sentenced.
Right.
How about that? Well, there you go.
There you go. Well,
all right, we don't claim him.
Of course, he was here. But I mean, now, during the investigation of these murders, the police were convinced it was some kind of bad narcotics deal. Okay, that created these murders. That they were a side effect. They had not interviewed anyone from the ranch at all, even after Busole was arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Now, according to someone with LA County police, it was handed down from on high. Make no arrests, take no police action towards Manson and his followers. This is when they raided. This was who raided them. Was the county police in LA. Now, there was even an occasion where Manson was picked up by LASO police for statutory rape, and they ended up cutting him loose. This happened again and again and again with Charles Manson. He would be caught red-handed, violating parole, and just let go. Again and again and again.
Suspect.
Right? So who or why is he let it just...
Was he an informant, or is this part of the story? Or?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. He possibly could have been an informant, either that or he had very high-ranking friends somewhere.
Man, even still, informants shouldn't be allowed to, sleep with kids. Come on.
Yeah, right.
I mean, really, they shouldn't be allowed to do anything.
I mean, machine guns and stolen cars and credit cards that fell out of his pocket. Okay. And that's just the most blatant part. Now, now I'm trying to find something. I'm trying to skip to the point here, because I don't know how long have we been going for 2 hours. Is it 2 or 3 or what?
We're just at about hour 15. Somewhere
okay.
Yeah, we got plenty of time. No hurry.
Now, I'm trying to find a certain thing here, and again, if you could see my notes, you'd understand that you're lucky you're getting any kind of a...
Well, we get down to brass tacks in the tinfoil hat shows, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to break it down.
We
right?
don't spout misinformation.
Right. I'm trying to be very precise here, and it's just that this whole thing it's very weird, and everything that you think could happen, it did, and it's very weird. Now, here we go. Whitson. Now, Shakiro Hatami, okay, was Sharon Tate's friend and personal photographer. He got a call from a friend telling her a full 90 minutes before the bodies were discovered that Tate had been murdered. They went to the radio after the phone call and turned the radio on and sat there for like 2 hours before the report came on that Tate had been killed. And it reportedly that was a full 90 minutes before anybody ever noticed that they were murdered. So that friend was a guy named Reeve Whitson. Okay. Hatami characterized him as a mystery man. So this guy, Whitson, threatened Hatami with deportation and finally with a gun to get him to testify that he had seen Manson at Celio. It was important to Bugliosi to have 2 witnesses to Manson showing up at Celio. Now, Bugliosi denied knowing Whitson, but was confronted with court records that proved Whitson was involved. And this is, O'Neill had been in contact with Bugliosi for years. And so when he would find new information, he'd bounce that off of him. And of course, he denied it. Now, Whitson died in 1994, but by all accounts, his friends knew that he had been an undercover agent of some kind. The rough consensus, though, that he was a part of the CIA or an offshoot of special operations groups connected to it. Now, Whitson lived about 8 lives simultaneously, reportedly. He had eccentric habits and an eidetic memory. Now, Reeve knew a lot about the Manson situation. He indicated if they had listened to him, that a lot of people may not have been killed, and that he was heavily involved in this situation. So Whitson implied that he had some advanced knowledge of what the family had planned. according to a guy named Cummings, Whitson was in a top secret arm of the CIA, even more secretive than most of the agency. And he said he had regrets for not stopping them, for doing something about it. He might have been there when it happened, right before or after. And he told me that he was there after the murders, but that the police got, and before the police got there. He said there were screw-ups before and after. He knew who did it, and it took him a long time to lead police to who did it.
Are we connecting the CIA here?
Oh, buddy.
Man, what were they doing in the 60s? They were killing presidents.
Listen. We're
JFK's another episode.
No.
But was he the shooter on the grassy knoll?
Now, let me get to it.
Let's break it here.
Listen, you unknowingly, there's some foreshadowing here. Okay. So the CIA is definitely involved here, right? According to these folks that knew Whitson, okay, that he was some sort of, he was the fulcrum in this situation, the man who can connect everything. O'Neill corroborated all of this from his ex-wife. Okay. O'Neill filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the CIA asking for information on Whitson. Their response said that they could neither confirm nor deny.
That's a fun one.
Whitson's connection to the agency. Freedom of Information Act specialist told me this is the closest one can get to a confirmation that someone worked for the CIA.
So they do tell people no?
I do believe.
Okay.
But if they don't want to tell you, yes, someone worked for the CIA, they can neither confirm nor deny.
Gotcha. Well, I was going to say my protocol would be to say that regardless.
Right.
No, of anything,
yeah,
you know.
I can confirm or deny that the tinfoil hat actually works.
Right.
You know.
That's the problem. You took it off.
Maybe that's it.
No.
Hold
You're
on.
doing great. You're doing great.
All right. Maybe I'll do better now.
We got a bull egg in his brain.
All right. So now, Sharon Tate's father, okay, was an ex-Army colonel, and several others involved in the case wrote a book, but it was never published. Whitson was involved. Colonel Tate died in 2005, but denied involvement in the case, knowing who Whitson worked for. In the book, it is told that the killers thought Tate wasn't home that night because her Ferrari was in the driveway. Wasn't in the driveway, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Though they never figured out why Colonel Curtis LeMay and Whitson got together, it was plausible that they were tied up in Charlie Barron's cabal of right-wing Hollywood friends. The ones who, Little Joe, you remember Little Joe?
Yep.
Had told me done terrible things to black people. George Wallace, who'd chosen LeMay as his running mate in his 1968 presidential bid, was among the nation's most notorious racists. So there is there's racists involved here, right?
Well, how do they grade that? Do they have like a grading scale of like, well, I give them a 7.5 out of 10.
Well, I think it.
I mean, notorious would be like
notorious.
They're actively having,
yes,
events and rallies.
And they're doing something about it, right? I think if you're notorious, you're doing something about it publicly, sure. Right? Now,
I wish they'd all do it publicly so we'd know who they are.
Exactly.
Like, oh, there's the scumbag.
Well, back then they could,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Back then they could.
Well, they still can now.
They do, but this was very public. 1968, 1969, it was a different era.
Oh yeah,
right?
Well, we had. When was the Civil Rights Act? Early 60s.
Yeah, I think so. During Johnson, early Johnson administration.
Well, this is less than 10 years where people couldn't drink out of the same water fountain.
Yes,
Yeah. Stuff was
and
crazy.
imagine 10 years ago is no time for us old guys anyway, right? If you're 10 years old, that's a long time. But once you bust 40, 10 years is nothing.
I get so depressed looking at when movies were made. And
right?
I'm like, well, that was 10 years ago?
Yeah.
I should have bought Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. You think like, man, I wish in 2005 I could just go back and tell myself. And
put $100 in
and listen, and I had friends that were like, hey, we should do this. And I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah. Now they're in like the Cayman Islands.
Right. They didn't do it either.
No, they didn't.
They didn't do it either. People
they forgot
talked
their
about
passcodes.
Yeah. And then they bought, whatever else they wanted instead of, something that would make them millions
Marlboro
of dollars.
Lights.
Yeah. Right. Something like that.
Yeah.
Now, so
Colonel Sanders dies.
So now O'Neill finds out about Otto and Elsie Scorenzi. Skorzenny? Skorzeny. All right.
That sounds good.
They were the most sinister of Whitson's friends. They were Nazis, genuine German, dyed-in-the-wool Nazis. The United Nations listed Otto Skorzeny as a war criminal. They were involved in the mission to rescue Mussolini and were some of Hitler's most trusted operatives. They were brought to trial in the U.S., but were turned and became operatives for the United States.
Of course. Is this Operation Paperclip or is that it?
That's a part of it.
Wow.
And actually, someone that was involved in Operation Paperclip owned the ranch next to Spawn Ranch. And it's well known. I can't remember the guy's name.
It's not the guy from October Sky, is it?
I don't know.
Warner von Braun?
I don't think it's no, it can't be Von Braun. It is what's the guy's name? I've totally forgot it.
And we're taking forks in the road here. Just so y'all know, Warner von Braun is brought up in October Sky as being Homer Hickam.
Homer Hickam. Yeah, idol. I was like, Homer Hickam used to hang out with the Manson family. It's all connected.
Dude.
No, he didn't. I'm joking.
He's pretty
Sorry,
good dude.
Homer. I met Homer. I interviewed him one time. It was one of my first assignments on my own as a news videographer was go down to Colwood and for one of the first Rocket Boys festivals when they were still having it in Colwood. That's how long ago this was. And I met him there and interviewed him briefly.
Dude, I need to get him on the podcast. How do we do that?
I mean,
he comes back every now and then.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I think he's in bad health right now, so you better hurry, man.
Anyone knows Homer Hickam?
I mean, I follow him on Twitter or something.
Yeah, DM the show, and we will.
Yeah, they got to know. I mean, there's got to be
from
people
the
out
county.
You're
too.
from the county. People from the county know you. They got to know him.
Yeah.
He has like an island in the Caribbean.
Island?
I don't know, but I know I follow him on Twitter, and he keeps talking about his island.
No Epstein connections with Homer Hickam.
Not that I know of. Anyway.
All right. Sorry, ADHD kicking in.
Oh, I know. Hey, listen. Me too. Completely diagnosed and medicated over here.
Good for you.
That's if I wasn't, I wouldn't be able to even do half of this.
Why are we here again?
Right. What happened?
What? Charles Manson.
Oh, right. Anyway, Nazis. So the entire Manson situation, the Black Panther movement, and probably similar other movements, people like that were discredited by certain things that, according to Reeve, may have been staged or done by government authorities to make them look bad. Okay. Now, Manson framed these murders to look like Black Panthers had done them. Now, nobody bought that, right? but it could have been possible. Okay, let's speculate a little bit. We do have the tinfoil hats on.
Mm-hmm.
Could Manson have been directed to do this to make the Black Panthers look bad?
Possible. And you're talking about LSD. I'm imagining that's going to come in because you were talking about the government doing LSD testing, and I just feel like it's about to.
Oh, we're gonna bring that in. But so there is several different levels of why or how or who kind of influenced these folks or Manson himself to influence his family to do these murders, right?
Right.
So that's one possibility, right? Is that he got wrapped up into some either certifiable Nazis or Nazi sympathizers or known racists within government agencies that wanted to make the Panthers look bad.
Sure. And listen, we hate Charles Manson, but you got to understand we've got a pedophile, gun-toting racist running around that should have been in prison several times.
Yes. Oh, and listen, and we haven't even got back to 1968 or 67 yet. Okay, we're gonna skip back to that here very soon. But this was well before he was even in LA. Okay, so now, okay, here we go. The LSAO, that's the Los Angeles County Police Department. I can't remember exactly what the anagram is there. Knew about Manson's plan to attack the Black Panthers. How could the police have known, and why would they have wanted that attack to happen? I had the vague notions of the tension between the Panthers and the government, but I couldn't say how it fit into the larger context of protests in the 60s, when the nation's unrest had crystallized in California. The state was the epicenter of the Summer of Love, and it had also seen the ascent of Reagan and Nixon, which are polar opposites, right? It had seen the Watts riots, the birth of the anti-war movement, the Altamont concert disaster, the free speech movement, and the Hells Angels. All of these things happening in California all at the same time. So defense contractors, cold warriors, and the tech companies lived just down the road from hippie communes, love-ins, and surf shops. This was the late 1960s in California. Okay? So Tom O'Neill then uncovers that there were two secret intelligence operations that were underway in Los Angeles in 1969. The FBI had what was called COINTELPRO, and CIA's Chaos. Their primary objective, according to three congressional committees that investigated them in the mid-70s, was to discredit the left-wing movement by any means necessary, in an aim that, coincidentally or not, described exactly the effect of the Manson murders. They wanted to discredit any kind of left ideology. The hippie movement, the Black Panthers, free speech, free love, all of these things. And
so we thinking Black Flag operation?
Oh, well, this was an active operation. These two were active operations. And one, the CIA is not supposed to operate on American soil. That's in their mandate. And they just did it again and again and again, right? So this chaos, okay, Now let's talk about how it was born. Okay. Now Johnson, okay, ordered the FBI and the CIA to take action as demonstrations against the Vietnam War flooded the streets of America, right? There was chaos. Everything was, crazy. And with the president's approval, CIA Director Richard Helms authorized an illegal domestic surveillance program codenamed Chaos. J. Edgar Hoover revived the FBI's dormant counterinsurgency program, COINTELPRO, and both agencies opened the first offices of their respective operations in San Francisco. Still considered ground zero for the revolution, especially since the founding of the Black Panther Party in nearby Oakland the previous summer. And of course, Haight-Ashbury in downtown San Francisco. Right? You've heard of that?
I have not. No, give me an overview.
Okay.
I've heard the name, but I don't know what that is.
Haight-Ashbury. Just give it a little goog there, and
let's goog it up. I'm getting off this Bing.
Yeah, I don't know how you got the Bing, but
at Microsoft, the PCs just bring it up.
The government did it. Haight, height. Yeah, so it's kind of what. There you go.
All right.
So Google Haight-Ashbury 1960s.
HAIGHT.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. 1967.
That's fine.
Seems to be the
that's
one
perfect.
that pops up. The death of the hippie ceremony.
Well,
in Haight-Ashbury.
Now, it was a mock funeral to the negative consequences of the rapid influx of people to the neighborhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
It got flooded with hippies, this neighborhood, in the mid-'60s. Okay? Right. And this was where the Grateful Dead was born. What's her name? Me and Bobby McGee. Me and Bobby McGee. Yeah, right.
Joan.
It's totally
not Joan Baez.
Big Brother in the Holding Company. Janis Joplin.
Hey, there she is.
You know, these type of and Jefferson Airplane. All of these kind of bands are from Haight-Ashbury and was based out of there at some point. It was an epicenter of the hippie movement, okay, in San Francisco. So both that and the Black Panther Party in Oakland, it was an epicenter for this movement in the 60s, right?
Okay.
And so that's where both of these programs were based out of. Now, thanks to these two secret programs and their network of well-placed informants, there was an all-out war raging in California by the summer of '69. The FBI and the CIA had induced the left to feed on itself. Among competing factions, which had been sectarian in strife and devolved in outright violence, the more I read about it, the more I saw how someone like Charles Manson could fit into a scheme like this. I knew I was only speculating, but I knew he'd spent a lot of time in Berkeley, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, often inveighing, that's a weird word, against the Black Panthers, and I had reliable sources suggesting that he was an informant, or at least hanging around with others who could have been. So, it kind of occurred to Tom O'Neill that the Tate LaBianca murders had kind of been invoked as the death knell of the 60s. People said that the 60s were over the next morning after they discovered these bodies. Nothing turned public opinion away from the hippie movement and feeling, at least neutral about these folks and this kind of cultural phenomenon, right? Than these murders. And then when you drag them out in a courtroom and they've shaved their heads, they've carved X's into their foreheads,
and they're singing
crazy stuff.
Let's watch them sing here.
Yeah.
Hang on. Okay, here we go.
Same? That's relative.
Think I could talk to you except through music.
Van Houten claims she originally lied about Manson's role in the murders to protect him during their first trial.
Old nudist article here.
Yeah.
I want to see if I can find them shaving their heads like a bunch of stooges.
So,
I mean, it's fine. Do whatever you want. But
so while you're doing that, now, wasn't that the entire purpose of Chaos and COINTELPRO? Was to turn people against this movement and things like this.
Right.
To totally turn what was a favorable thing. Hey, peace and love, man. We're all here to get together and drop in, drop out, and whatever, right? That was the whole thing about the majority of the 60s, and peace, not war. And so that was a turning point in American culture.
Well, the industrial complex, or the war machine was cranking up.
Yeah. Well, and they were trying to shut it down.
Yeah, they don't want peace.
Yeah, they were trying to shut it down. Right? These two programs were born out of a reaction to the anti-war movement. And what other than these murders turn public opinion against these folks who were out there protesting against the Vietnam War? Now they were not only, harmless hippies, they were dangerous. You didn't want to pick up a hippie on the side of the road and give him a ride, man. He may stab you.
This is if the government is responsible, it's kind of brilliant on their part, because it's like, what can we do that isn't necessarily involved with war?
Right.
But is in a protesting type way to end, So yeah. This is
I mean, if you wanted to affect public opinion, you couldn't have done it any better. Do you know what I mean? Like, they knocked it out of the park. So COINTELPRO was an abridgment of counterintelligence program, right? First launched in 1956 to increase factionalism among communists in the United States. COINTELPRO had been activated on and off throughout the early 60s, often to vilify civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King Jr. most prominent among them. Now, they infiltrated Martin Luther King Jr.'s inner circle and taped him flirting with other women, and then sent that to his wife. And it's in court documents. There's documents out there proving that COINTELPRO did this just to try to screw with Martin Luther King Jr.
Do you know the theory behind his assassination?
I have heard bits and pieces.
With the guy that went to Brushy Mountain in Tennessee. What's his name? That was charged with killing him.
Right.
Anyway, we don't have to. We'll get into that one later.
Yeah, we can crack that one open later. But I think the Memphis police were really nice to that guy. I think is what I heard. I don't know.
Yeah. Let me see. I just want to look up his name. James
Earl Ray.
Yeah, they created the Barkley Marathons based on his escape.
Oh, right. I think I saw that video.
Yeah. So, and I got some people. I've been
to the Lorraine Motel.
That one gets several comments of like, he didn't do it. And I'm like, well, okay, but like technically they have that he did. We have to spend a couple hours on breaking it down.
Right. Well,
but anyway, I'm not saying you're wrong, but
maybe next time.
Yeah.
Now in Quantico, right? This was before the CIA actually had or FBI used to have before they had a base there, right? Before their academy was there. And Hoover called it Hoover University, and they trained agents in the delicate art of passing as leftists. They grew unkempt beards, refrained from bathing for days at a time, parroted radical talking points, got stoned, and tripped on acid.
There's a lot of correlations with today that I'm hearing. So we get in these cycles.
I'm sure that there are guys out there who are FBI agents infiltrating places just like this today.
Sure.
If you think they stopped in 1969, please. So now, let's see here. Now they definitely tried to mess with the Black Panthers a lot, and they would accuse others of being rats or informants themselves, and so now the most successful operation that they had in Chicago, the FBI recruited a man named William O'Neill, who had been charged with impersonating a federal officer and driving a stolen car across state lines. And they got him to infiltrate the Panthers Illinois chapter, for giving those charges in exchange for his services. Soon, O'Neill became the personal bodyguard for Fred Hampton, the chapter's chairman. O'Neill posts allowed him to provide the Bureau with a steady stream of intelligence, including detailed floor plans of Hampton's apartment. Although he found no evidence that Hampton or the group posed a threat to anyone's safety, in December of 1969, days coincidentally after Manson was charged in the Tate LaBianca murders, O'Neill slipped a barbiturate into Hampton's drink over dinner. By the end of the night, the police had raided Hampton's apartment and shot him twice in the head at point blank range.
Jesus.
And that was a known COINTELPRO operation.
Right.
So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that folks would get killed. Right.
Well, listen, we know that there were black flag operations.
Sure.
With the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs and all of that going on.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. Is that in this? That's not in this.
Now, COINTELPRO encompassed a staggering range of targets that the FBI's deployment of dangerous, degrading, or blatantly unconstitutional techniques appears to have become less restrained with each subsequent program. Now, Hoover had specifically requested that these techniques be imaginative and hard-hitting, and they were. The FBI tried to seemingly everything from gossip to gunfights. So they would tell Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife that he's, flirting with other women, and then they would blatantly shoot Fred Hampton in the dead of night, execution style. Those were things that this program did. Now, of course, if any of this is legal, is it lawful? Is it ethical?
I'm gonna go with no for 1,000, please.
And they and all they were concerned about was this: will this course of action work, and will it get us what we want? That was their entire focus. Now, so J. Edgar Hoover felt he had to widen this gap between the African American community and the white community in Los Angeles.
And remind people that he was the creator of the FBI.
Yes, this is the creator, head of the FBI for many, 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 many years. In a November 1968 memo, an LA field agent discovered new efforts to spread disinformation to Hollywood's liberal whites. In the context of the Tate LaBianca murders, the memo is chilling. Remember, the Tate House by then had become a high-profile gathering place for liberal Hollywood. Among others, Fonda, Jane Fonda, Cass Elliot, and Warren Beatty, all three of whom were under FBI surveillance. Abigail Folger, who would die at the hands of the family, was an outspoken civil rights activist. So these folks would hold, sorry about that. These folks would hold fundraisers for the Black Panthers and support them, a lot. There was actually a White Panther group who may have been, involved there at the
KKK?
Celio Drive. No, like
they're called the White Panthers?
Yeah, well, they supported the Black Panthers.
Oh, okay, got
right.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
I thought it was the
antithesis. no, like not the bad guys. These are and that's they. So then COINTELPRO may want to shut that down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now. Yep, this is and what you looking for?
No, it says yes.
Abigail Folger,
big civil rights activist.
right?
Man, did they target these people?
Oh,
or
they
were
were
they
definitely
just like, let's go to
targeted.
the first house on the left?
No, they were they were definitely targeted, and even the LaBiancas, I think, were targeted for some reason. I can't recall why right now. They said that it was random, that Manson had been to a house next to the LaBiancas,
mm-hmm.
and that he had went there and nobody was home, so he just went next door. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Right.
So now
this is deep, Tom.
We're getting there. Okay. So LBJ, right? Lyndon Baines Johnson was convinced that the anti-war movement and such had to be a foreign influence in America. And so he ordered CIA to form Chaos. Now, Richard Helms did this immediately, probably thought it was a fantastic idea. This is he ran the CIA at the time, and they tracked thousands of Americans, insulating its information gathering so thoroughly that even at the top of the counterintelligence division were clueless about its domestic surveillance because they were not supposed to operate on American soil.
What a dick.
Chaos.
Get it?
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Richard.
Hey now. Yeah.
I won't beep that one. That's a clean.
People probably called him Dick Helms. I'm sure.
What up, Dick Helms?
So Chaos kept tabs on 300,000 people, more than 7,000 of them American citizens. Now, a journalist caught wind of Chaos in 1974, and he was forced to step down, right? Richard Helms. When So Richard Helms had disbanded Chaos before leaving office in 1973, and he ordered the destruction of every file pertaining to it. And since the 70s, almost nothing has come out. The operation hardly left a footprint. Now, they had at least two program people looking into manipulating the Black Panthers at the time. That makes no sense.
Did you write a question?
I don't know. I have no idea. None of
reading
that.
the notes very well.
So, and I'm trying to, I'm trying not to screw this up.
You're not.
So now Bussolay was tried for the Hinman murder separately. Okay. Now, wouldn't it make sense to try him with the rest of the family? Because there were two separate murders in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they try them together? They were all in the family. They were all connected to Manson. Manson actually cut Hinman. He cut his ear in half and across his face.
Shouldn't have ran that mouth.
And evidently not. So why wouldn't they charge them together? Okay. Now Manson ordered it. Manson ordered Bussolay to kill Hinman because he had already been cut. And so Bussolay sat there for like a day and a half with this guy. He even stitched him up with some dental floss to try to stop the bleeding.
Jeez.
And finally, Manson was like, would you just take care of this? We know what you're going to have to do and just do it. And so he kills Hinman.
Mm-hmm.
And Hinman wasn't discovered for about a week. And, then they figured out that his cars were stolen. Bussolay was found on the side of the road somewhere in California in one of Hinman's cars. And that's how they discovered him. He had the murder weapon in, the under the spare tire. Okay. So it was open and shut case. But the thing is, Bussolay called Manson and told him, hey, you're going to have to do something. I'm sewed up for this Hinman. And so then that kind of shatters the whole I'm starting a race war motive.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he may have just been trying to get his buddy out of jail by doing some copycat murders.
Right.
And so I believe that is why they were not, tried at the same time. Now,
so what we're developing here is, they're all pieces of garbage, but also we're developing a theory that the government knew and purposely let it go on.
Yes, because these folks were busted again and again and again, and then let out. Okay.
And then this was so public that they couldn't not do something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And everybody had figured out who done it, and they finally had to go and arrest them.
Yeah.
And they couldn't cover it up anymore. That's the opinion that I have, right? I think it was too public. It had gone on for 2 months, and they looked stupid, right? The LAPD, the LA County Police, they all look dumb, right? Because these very public and brutal murders. I mean, Tate was 8 months pregnant.
Yeah,
right.
Horrific.
So there was public outcry. Now, they kind of screwed Susan Atkins here, right? When they were, trying to get her a lawyer. Okay. And do we need to go into? I don't think we. So, all right. The long story short, Susan Atkins had a lawyer. Okay, and then she was going to be brought up for some kind of charge that was unrelated, and they held some sort of a, or maybe she was gonna rat. I can't remember. It's somewhere in here. It's a lot. Right?
Sure.
How long have I been talking?
No, yeah.
Anyway, so they had an illegal hearing with a judge to fire her lawyer without her permission and install a former deputy DA to be her lawyer.
That's not constitutional.
Not at all. And then the prosecution, who was really just a deputy DA or a former deputy DA, leaked her supposed confession to the press to spoil the jury pool on purpose. They say he didn't do it. He says he didn't do it, but that's what happened, because not only did these intelligence agencies have folks in police stations and prosecution or defense lawyers. Not only did they have these people, they had journalists as well. And so there were several journalists that were, CIA operatives, or maybe they had something on these journalists and they said, hey, write this. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what they write. And so they effectively tainted the jury pool, right? They were no longer objective because they had heard, this horrible, story, and everybody bought it, right? Now,
and back then you had like 3 media sources,
right? And it was very easy to,
Now it's difficult, but let that dome sweat, son.
God.
Let it air out.
I mean, look at that.
Ooh, we got to keep these. I'm gonna try to keep them intact.
You're gonna. I could boil ramen in here right now.
Available now. Creepalachia.tv. Exclusive tinfoil hats as a joke. But shop's going to be open soon.
Well, maybe it's not a joke. Maybe
the
that's
shop.
not a
I think
joke.
the shop may be open when this episode comes out. I'm not sure.
Awesome.
Hopefully,
go buy some stuff, y'all.
Yeah, support the shop.
So not only did Manson have kind of a catch and release type relationship with authorities, Susan Atkins was also arrested and let go several times between 67 and 69. So she refused to allow any terms of her probation and was let off of probation months before the Tate LaBianca murders. And that had never been reported before. She just refused to do any of the things involved in probation. She didn't report to a PO. She didn't have a job. She didn't take a test, right? She did none of these things. And they just let her off of probation. And this had never been reported before until this book. Now, she had been in jail before, right? That's why she had been on probation then. But the difference is when she was let out, she hooked up with Charles Manson.
Got the clap.
Yeah. Well, obviously.
I mean, the clap's running.
Oh,
rampant.
for sure. And we'll get into that too.
They had what? STDs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's STDs, baby.
Goody. Goody drops.
So now in 1967, Charles Manson is let out of prison. Okay. He makes his way to, and he was let out in LA. All right. And then all of a sudden he shows up the next day in San Francisco. he had no permission to leave. Nobody said that he could leave LA. And they were just like, oh, okay. Cool. And so he got this probation officer who was working in San Francisco called Roger Smith. Okay. Now, Roger Smith had an office at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. Okay. Now, Smith really took care of the family, and he even served as foster parents for Manson's first son with one of the family members.
Aw.
This is his parole officer. Okay.
Pretty close.
Now, Manson was given a book called Stranger in a Strange Land. You ever heard of this
I've heard
book?
of this.
Okay. He was given a book by Roger Smith, Stranger in a Strange Land, right? And so Manson was enamored with this book, and he carried it around constantly in San Francisco, 1967, 68. Okay. Now, Roger Smith earned the nickname Jubal Harshaw, and it's the most important character in the hero's life in this book. It was his lawyer, his teacher, his protector, and his spiritual guide on earth. Now, the theme of the book is this guy named Valentine Michael. He was born on Mars, and then he travels. He was raised on Mars. He's a human, raised on Mars, and he is endowed with hypnotic powers. Okay. He descends to Earth to foster a new and perfect race. Guarded by Jubal, he assembles a nest with about 20 others, almost all women, whom he initiates through sex. He demands that his followers surrender their egos to him in a spirit of total submission. They worship the innocence of children and yearn to exist in a state of such pure consciousness that they can communicate telepathically. The group sleeps and eats together. One of their most sacred rituals is the act of sharing water, which takes on vaguely druggy undertones. So this is the book.
Is that the brochure?
Yeah.
Oh, look, it sounds like a great place.
So I think this was a blueprint for what Manson wanted to do,
Right.
because he walked around the Haight-Ashbury district. Okay. He had upwards to 5 to 10 women with him at any given time. Every once in a while, there'd be a dude, but they were mostly women by and large. I think there was only 2 or 3 on Spawn Ranch when they were, raided. And there was 17 women. Okay. So now, in this book, Valentine Michael's philosophy is that there is no death, only discorporation. Killing people saves their souls, giving them a second chance through reincarnation. The group begins to discorporate their enemies with impunity. In time, Valentine Michael draws strength from the nest and, like Christ, saves the world. And so Roger Smith gives this book to Manson, and Roger Smith at the time, he was a student. Okay. He was doing this parole thing kind of on the side. And then by the end of 67, Roger Smith had 40 parolees at the beginning, and at the end of 67, he only had Manson. Only one. Now, according to Smith, he was a new parole officer to Manson, right? But that's the official version. But Smith's assistant said that they kind of coincided earlier in Illinois, despite Manson only being in Illinois for a few weeks. That Manson may have been sent to San Francisco to have Smith as a parole officer. So
I see.
He was released from prison and then skips his parole. He didn't report for parole in LA. He went to San Francisco and everybody's just like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And he's in San Francisco, breaking all kinds of laws. His family members are breaking all kinds of laws, and nothing happens to them. They get jailed. Somebody makes a phone call, and they are let out. And nobody cares, right? So at the center of it was this guy Smith, right? At least in part. Now, out of the blue, Smith wanted to send Charlie to Mexico for a job testing soil samples.
Nice.
I mean,
gonna mine some coal.
I mean, he's a con man. He's an ex-con, right? He has no scientific training, right?
Yeah.
But interestingly, at the same time Smith made these requests, he launched a criminological study of Mexican drug trafficking for the federal government. So Adkins and Mary Brunner said they spent quite a lot of time in Mexico with Manson that winter. Otherwise, their whereabouts from November to December of 67 are entirely unaccounted for. And Smith was in Haight-Ashbury to do research on violence and amphetamines. He was just doing this parole officer thing on the side, right? To ensure success, Smith argued, researchers had to protect their subjects from criminal prosecution, concealing their activities from the police and granting them anonymity in all reports. And so Manson obviously was a test subject. Correct?
Yeah.
I mean
about have to be.
He'd have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's it. So, all right. Can we take a break? I gotta hit the restroom.
Let's do it. And we're back.
Okay. So I'm gonna cut to the chase here. Okay. Now we know that Roger Smith here with the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic connection. Okay. He was the parole officer of Charles Manson in 1967 when he was released, and continued to be his parole officer for the next couple of years. Now, we know he was there doing research on drugs. Okay. And that his research subjects could not be identified or locked up for any reason. Okay. Now, the person that opened the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic was a man named Dr. Dave Smith. Okay. No relation to Roger Smith, just randomly two Smith guys here. He ran it, and it was a government program. He used to study LSD in rats as a graduate student until he started his own experimentation. He founded the clinic to care for the influx of young people in Haight-Ashbury. The clinic was totally free. Loitering was encouraged. The whole place looked like an acid den. Colorful, intriguing patterns. There is video out there of the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic. I think on YouTube from the 60s. I think it's on YouTube. I've seen it somewhere.
I'm eating a cookie.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be here for a minute.
Yeah, it's all good. So now Manson had an apartment down the street from the clinic, and he began to indoctrinate his followers using acid and mind games, breaking down ego, unconventional sexual practices, and treating his women like open vessels. And before long, they followed him unquestionably. Okay. This is the free Haight-Ashbury drug clinic. I don't know whether is that the right one?
I don't know.
I don't think that's the right place. It's the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic. HAIGHT.
Spelled it wrong again. Anyway.
I mean, it should be, there you go. Born in the Summer of Love right here. So you could probably skip through that and find it. That's probably the guy, Dr. Dave. This was the place. Okay. Coincidentally, this place had been open since the 60s until a month after this book was released. They closed it a month after Chaos was released.
Oh, wow.
The book, Tom O'Neill's book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
recently?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
That was in the past. I think the book was released in 19 or 20.
Right.
And then they, they just had to shut down all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear why. Now he now there was these two guys, Smith and Smith, but another gentleman that had an office at the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic was Dr. Louis Gylon West. Have you ever heard of Jolly West?
Jolly West? That sounds familiar.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So Jolly West, he came to the public eye early in his career because he was doing tests on controlling human behavior at Cornell University. Okay, during the Korean War, he helped deprogram returning prisoners of war who'd allegedly been brainwashed. Now, these prisoners of war came back to America and were saying that the United States military was using biological weapons in Korea. Of course, they absolutely were using biological weapons in Korea, and it's been proven since. But Jolly West was involved in reprogramming these people and supposedly, deprogramming them, saying that the Koreans had brainwashed these gentlemen, and they were talking madness. They had been brainwashed by the Koreans, and I deprogrammed them. But when in fact they were telling the truth, and Jolly West convince them otherwise somehow. Okay.
Right. You sure this isn't Stephen New, attorney at law? Look at
Hey, he does now. I hear Jolly West was a big guy, so
well, he's shorter, ain't he? I don't know how tall Steve is.
Steve's about 5'7" or something.
Right.
Yeah, he's not a large gentleman. He's large in personality. I know that. Steve's a good guy.
I know he's a wrestler.
Well, he's into wrestling, right?
Dabbles a little bit.
Yeah, he likes sponsoring the wrestling, and I've worked with Steve a little bit. He's a great guy. Shout out to Steve New.
Shout out.
Love you, buddy. So
you look like Jolly West.
yeah, at least here he does, doesn't he?
It's like, hey, have you been affected by mesothelioma? Give me a call. I'm sorry.
If you got to sue, call Stephen P. New.
Oh,
okay,
that's a good one.
Yeah. Well, he sponsors. Do you remember Jim Cornette?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he sponsors Cornette's podcast.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so that's what Jim Cornette says. If you got to sue, call Stephen P. New.
Yeah, the dude
right?
from WWE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Good old Jim Cornette, right? Anyway, I digress.
Sorry,
No, it's all good. So Jolly West, now his detractors alleged that through the 50s and the early 60s at Air Force bases in Texas and Oklahoma, that he performed experiments on unwitting subjects using LSD and hypnosis.
Here we go.
West psychiatrically examined Jack Ruby, who'd murdered Kennedy's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, not long before Ruby was due to testify for the Warren Commission. West examined him alone in his jail cell. West then emerged to report that Ruby had suffered an acute psychotic break.
Wow.
And Jack Ruby was never the same after this meeting with Jolly West. And so, did Jolly West push Jack Ruby over the edge in this meeting? We'll never know. But Jack Ruby would never tell people exactly. He could never articulate why he shot Oswald, and then died of a very aggressive lung cancer less than a year later, something like that, maybe a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And
a lot of suspicious deaths.
A lot of suspicious deaths, and Jack Ruby was all of a sudden completely insane. Now, reportedly, when Jack Ruby shot Oswald, when the police grabbed him, he kind of and said, "What are you doing? What's going on? I'm Jack Ruby. Why are you doing this to me? What's going on? What's happening?" And he didn't understand why he was being arrested. So was Jack Ruby a Manchurian candidate? Was he programmed? They got him
on tape shooting him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he did it.
So we're thinking mind control.
Right. Like he acted like he didn't know what was happening when the police took him into custody, when they grabbed him and cuffed him.
That's so weird. That's like the guy that shot RFK too. Or
we'll get to that.
Bobby. What? All right.
We'll get to that.
I got to put my Jesse Ventura. Tom.
So, now we are going to start talking CIA here. So I'm going to put my my tinfoil hat back on. Okay. Now, throughout the 70s, journalists accused West of running the mind control operation for the CIA known as MK Ultra. So, yeah, Jack Ruby, right, was obviously some sort of subject of MK Ultra. Jolly West was his psychiatrist. He just shows up and is his psychiatrist and here's the quote, Ruby lost his senses when he pulled out his gun. The next thing he knew, the cops had him pinned to the floor and had no memory of what he'd just done. He said, "What am I doing here?" He asks. "What are you guys jumping me for?" A psychiatric analysis solicited by Ruby's defense attorney said he had suffered a fugue state with subsequent amnesia. And so he couldn't tell anyone why he had done it in the first place. And after West met with him, he almost immediately went completely insane, hearing Jewish children burned to death or boiled outside of his cell, tried to commit suicide by ramming his head against the wall. Now, others said the possibility of toxic psychosis could be entertained, but is considered unlikely because of his protected situation. But Jolly West had private interactions with him.
Yeah.
And so that's really the only one that had. All right. So now let me find where I was here.
Not so jolly.
No. But he was very charismatic, they say. He was a womanizer, and evidently he liked to sleep with his friends' wives. Woo! Yeah. So
sorry, I had to hit it with the Ric Flair.
Yeah. I mean, he took him to Space Mountain, and now
he gave him the jolly best.
Now but in the late fall of 1966, Jolly West arrived in San Francisco to study hippies and LSD. The Bay Area had seen an unprecedented migration of middle-class youth and an explosion of recreational drug use. West felt he had to witness it firsthand. And so he secured a government grant. He took a year-long sabbatical from his professorship at the University of Oklahoma. And he was supposedly to pursue a fellowship at Stanford, but there is no record of any fellowship at Stanford. Now, it was known that LSD would leave users unusually susceptible and emotionally liable. And it also caused a loosening of ego structure. That language was reminiscent of the reprogramming spiel that Charles Manson would soon develop, urging his acid-tripping followers to negate their egos. Now, there is no solid proof that Charles Manson and Jolly West ever met each other. But Jolly West had an office at the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic. Charles Manson was known to just show up at the free clinic, meet with his parole officer, Smith, and he would get all of his ladies treated for venereal diseases.
There we go.
I told you we were going to hit there. And pregnancies, right? There were a lot of unwanted pregnancies. And so he was in and out of this free clinic all of the time, where Jolly West had an office for a couple of years, right? So Jolly West bought a house and called it his laboratory and disguised it as a hippie crash pad. This is in the Haight-Ashbury area.
Right.
He installed 6 graduate students in the pad, telling them to dress like hippies and lure kids into the apartment. Passers-by were welcome to do as they pleased and stay as long as they wanted, if they didn't mind grad students taking notes on their behavior. And so the Haight-Ashbury project went on for 6 months. And of course, David Smith gave him an office at the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic. Now, have you ever heard of Operation Midnight Climax?
Yes.
Okay. This was a program of the CIA where they would dose unwitting Johns in
I hate to laugh.
and they would dose them with LSD and watch them through two-way mirrors and study their reactions to the LSD.
Do they have to put climax in the freaking operation?
I mean, why not? You know, if you're dealing with Johns, you might as well.
Woo!
So
I'm sorry. So much Ric Flair. All right, go ahead.
I snorted a little bit. Now, West also supervised a similar study in Oklahoma City, hiring informants to infiltrate teenage gangs and engender a fundamental change in basic moral, religious, or political matters. Now, the title of that project was Mass Conversion. And so I'm sure they would dose them with LSD and try to bend their morals, their thoughts on religion, and of course, political matters, right? So
sounds exhausting.
I
mean, you can't even have a conversation with someone today about like, hey, what do you think about public schools?
Right.
You know, it just goes to heck.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
But anyway.
Yeah, I listened to that one. Good episode.
Thank you.
There were conflicting ideas in that room, I do believe.
It was fun. Yeah, yeah. I mean, now we all conversed, but like this is complicated. Like,
oh yeah. So at the hippie crash pad, more often hippies failed to show up at all, since most of them apparently looked at the pad with suspicion. Of course, I mean, I wouldn't hang out there, right?
I'd pass.
And the students that were there would ask themselves, you know, what the hell have I gotten myself into, and what is Jolly doing? It's like a zoo. Is he studying us or them? And pressed for specific guidelines, West would say phoniness and he exuded phoniness and dishonesty, suggesting that the students answer sweeping, high-flown questions about the hate, which is that, is this an asphalt Sherwood forest? And she got the impression that this question had already been answered. And the CIA tested drugs, LSD, on American citizens, mostly in federal penitentiaries or on military bases, who didn't even know about, let alone consent to, the battery of procedures they underwent. They were unwitting subjects of testing, which is against the Geneva Convention, much less American law. It's international law.
Yeah, apparently you can't just give people LSD without them knowing and then watch what they do.
And study them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's highly illegal.
And they say in that place, even the crabs on the toilet seat were Grateful Dead fans.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They were like, Jerry's God, man.
Yeah.
So
Lord.
These projects' broadest goal was to influence human behavior. Okay? Sometimes the CIA would prank each other with acid, and someone would even plan to spike the punch at the Christmas party one year until some of the higher-ups reminded them that it could cause insanity. And so they didn't. But fewer than half a dozen agency brass were aware of MK Ultra at any period during its 20-year history. It was that secret. Only less than 6 people knew about this program at any given time. Now, you've heard of Wormwood. Have you seen that?
I've seen it. I haven't watched it, but I know what you're talking about.
Someone dosed an agent, and he supposedly killed himself. He jumped out of a window. Now, speculation is that they threw him out of this high-rise window because he was about to let loose that Ultra was a thing and that the U.S. was using biological weapons in Korea, both which, the higher-ups can't have that, right? Now, West, his whole point was to reverse someone's belief system without their knowledge, and make it stick. He hoped to create couriers who would carry a long and complex message embedded secretly in their minds to study the induction of trance states by drugs. All of these were the goals of MK Ultra, and they bore a striking resemblance to the Manson's accomplishments with his followers more than a decade later. Now, and I got to take this. I know I'm still talking about MK Ultra, but this thing's killing me.
It's like Heaven's Gate on acid.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And now, of course, West added that these experiments must eventually be put into test in practical trials in the field. He had to see if this stuff really worked. And now, Tom O'Neill found out most of the information here about Jolly West and MK Ultra because he denied it until his death in 1999. Now, when he died, West was the neuroscience and psychiatry head at UCLA. And all of his papers, as this happens, if you were involved with a major institution like UCLA and you got this storied career, all of your papers go to the university and they hold them, in perpetuity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so nobody had ever asked for these papers until Tom O'Neill did. And so he started going through these papers one by one, and they hadn't even been processed by UCLA. They didn't know what was even there. And so he found a series of letters to Gottlieb, which is the head of the CIA at that point. But it was under a pseudonym that was well known. It was actually in another book, what the pseudonym was. And these were unredacted letters to Gottlieb. And one went in through the process that West had successfully, through hypnosis, replaced a memory of a childhood event and replaced it with a fictional one. Meaning they had put someone under hypnosis and replaced an entire memory. Without
like Inception.
Yes. And he'd done it, he claimed, by administering new drugs, effective in speeding the induction of the hypnotic state and in deepening the trance that can be produced in given subjects. And so he was giving them drugs, then hypnotizing them, and replacing memories effectively. Now, to me, that is wild.
Yeah.
I mean,
It sounds impossible.
It sounds impossible, but evidently this can be done. Now, so that now during the trial of Manson, right? Jolly West was completely absent from any of these proceedings. And this was the biggest trial in the history of trials up until that point, at least in LA, in on the West Coast. And so he was the head of psychiatry at UCLA at the time. And his absence is really conspicuous, right? He was one of the world's leading experts on brainwashing and cults, and was hardly adverse to the publicity, right? He had been Jack Ruby's psychiatrist. He had helped people reprogrammed from the Korean War. He had appeared as a witness many times before. And Manson was tried in his own backyard, and the proceedings were international news, yet West was nowhere near him. And when Susan Atkins was up for parole 10 years later, she said she was still under Manson's control. Quote, "I can't get him out of my head. He's still in my brain."
It's quite the French kiss.
Yes. For sure. Now, the question was asked, is it possible that the Manson murders were an MK Ultra experiment gone wrong? And a forensic psychologist and professor who had written a book on MK Ultra, he answered no. This was an MK Ultra experiment gone right.
Mm.
So there has to be a connection with Jolly West and Charles Manson and MK Ultra. They both used LSD and other drugs. There was 3 or 4 other drugs, amphetamines being one of them. The Manson family reportedly was on speed during the murders. Now, that did not come out in the trial because they didn't want the fact that they were on drugs to let them go, right? They wanted convictions because people were screaming for, justice. Okay. So, and they called Manson hypnotic all of the time. And someone reportedly knew that Manson knew how to hypnotize people. And so where did he learn these things? These were obviously MK Ultra techniques created by Jolly West and enacted, right, by Charles Manson. The parallels here there's too many. It's impossible.
A lot of coincidences.
It's a lot of coincidences, right? And it's circumstantial, right? But like the Natalie Cochran case, once you put all of these things together, it's obvious what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Paul McCartney's fault.
Exactly.
Okay.
He wrote Helter Skelter and enacted the race war. So it's this was called a strategy of tension. Okay. Tragedies turned into government policy. They do this when there is a school shooting. They say, well, we got to do something about all these guns. Right? They effectively turned the entire anti-war and anti-hippie movement with this single series of murders and changed the course of American history. It's probably the most successful MK Ultra program. I'm sure Chaos and COINTELPRO were involved as well because of the Black Panther tie-ins, and there's too much there, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty apparent.
And the ending of this book is sort of anticlimactic because there isn't a document that says Manson met with Jolly West or he was indoctrinated in and taught how to use LSD and hypnosis in federal prison to hypnotize and influence people, right? There's no actual proof of any of this, but we know that they tested acid and these techniques on prisoners. We know that Manson and his family were allowed to do just whatever they wanted until they had to bring the hammer down on them. And we know that Manson used these techniques that the U.S. government were using on its own people. These are all things that are verifiable.
Yep. And we know that he was featured on Celebrity Deathmatch.
That's right.
On the first episode.
Who'd he fight?
Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson.
Yep.
Charles Manson won, right? I think
he did.
I think Charles Manson. He's the original Manson.
From what I remember, yeah. Charles Manson versus Marilyn Manson. Oh, hey! There's where that name comes from. Marilyn Monroe, Charles Manson.
Yeah.
Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, that's where that came from. So
we solved it.
There it is. It's done. So what do you think?
Charles the Clap Manson would be his wrestling name.
Right.
Sponsored by Stephen New, attorney at law.
Stephen P. New. If you got to sue, call Stephen P. New. So, and in fact, Sirhan.
Oh yeah,
did not know what he was doing. He was in a fugue state, and actually, the coroner in that case is the same coroner from the Tate LaBianca murders. There was proof that the kill shot actually came from behind Robert Kennedy, and Sirhan was in front of it. And so, was there another gunman? That's what it seems. Was Sirhan the patsy? Maybe. Was Oswald a patsy? I think so. He may have been involved, but to what end, right? I think a lot of the shenanigans of the 60s and early 70s leads right back up to these programs. And it's wild how they turned the entire culture with these murders and things like them, right? I mean, Jolly West was connected to JFK, possibly Sirhan. He had a direct connection to Jack Ruby. He had a office in the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic where Charles Manson and his family used to come twice a week to get his VD treatments and see his parole officer who let him go and do just whatever he wanted. It's staggering.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's a cougar hunter.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. He takes out Black Panthers.
Yeah. Or no. Yeah. I'm talking about Jolly the Jolly Best.
All right. Yeah.
I know. I mean, really, it comes down to one thing for me. Always check your ingredients of your LSD. Okay. Make sure it's homegrown LSD.
Right.
Don't accept the LSD from the federal government.
Right. But how do you know?
Yeah.
How can you tell? Right. And there is speculation that the government supplied Manson with this acid, because where did it all come from? I mean, it was the late 60s. It was everywhere. Right. But he had a seemingly endless supply. And it's staggering. I first read this book and it, again, I'm wearing a tinfoil hat on a podcast.
That's our resume.
But it all makes perfect sense. A lot more than, he was trying to scare a guy that didn't even live there. And he knew he didn't live there. He knew he wasn't there. And,
good stuff.
There you go.
Well, we solved it. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Everyone out there.
It was the government.
Yep. We, but
I'll try not to die on my way home because I'm sure they're listening. My laptop's right here.
Please drive safe. But to clarify, he carved the Nazi symbol into his forehead
later
after he was in prison.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we detest Charles Manson.
Yes.
And everything he stands for, but also, just be cautious, people.
Was he a test subject? Was he a puppet?
Yeah.
Right. I think so. And even Bugliosi, right? So Bugliosi was a crazy person. I didn't even get into this. Okay. Bugliosi had an idea that his first son was actually the milkman's. Okay.
Is that where that came from? The saying?
Well, I guess it was a thing back in the day. The milkman would come by your house all the time and, drop off milk.
Yeah.
Right? Hey now. And so Bugliosi had it in his mind that his first son was, consistent, often predictable delivery of milk became a symbol of everyday life.
I looked up. The milkman joke likely emerged from the ubiquity and routine nature of milk deliveries, particularly in early periods of American history.
Right. Woo! And unfulfilled housewives.
Ooh,
right? Because again, back in the day, the pleasure of women was not the number one priority in a lot of husbands' lives, right? To be honest.
Let's get really awkward here. Let's talk about this.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything to say.
I thought you had like something profound. But anyway, so yeah, Bugliosi thought that his son was the milkman's, and so he stalked the milkman and his family and actually picked up the milkman's daughter from school and bought her toys and then dropped her off at the end of the driveway.
Jesus.
He completely messed up this guy's life. And then he had an affair with someone, and there was a child. And he had pushed this woman into having an abortion. And this lady was Catholic and she refused. She finally agreed. She said that she had went and done it. And so Bugliosi called the doctor, and the doctor ignored his the law, and told Bugliosi that he in fact did not perform the abortion. And so Bugliosi went to her apartment, proceeded to just beat the living hell out of this woman. And then she, called the cops, of course. And then he went back and made her call the cops and say that she had filed a false police report because he was a well-known public prosecutor, right? And so they sent a couple of cops over there, and of course he was there when she made the call, because they could tell something was going on, that she was upset. And so he was compromised for a couple of different reasons. And so that's kind of the way they operate as well. They find people who are compromised and push them to do things that they normally wouldn't do. Right? And so this guy went along and did exactly as he was told. That's kind of where I was.
What a cesspool of scumbags. Yeah. And I'll never eat a bouillon-based cube again. I mean, I don't think I've done that one time, but I wonder if he created those.
Maybe. Anyway, but that's it. And, it was a lot farther reaching than I could ever imagine when I started, looking into this. You can also look up there was a section outside of LA where the CIA or someone had set up a recording studio, right? And the speculation is, and the Doors and everyone was involved. Look up the Doors and the CIA. Now, I had heard, right, and maybe what's the lead singer of the Doors? It totally left me. Jim Morrison, right? Jim Morrison was the son of an admiral in the Air Force or the Navy. I can't remember which, who was involved in the Gulf of Tonkin incident, right? Which was fake. It was a completely false flag situation to get them into the Vietnam War. Okay. That was his dad, right? And people speculate that Jim Morrison was a asset for the CIA, and that they used music to influence people in America, right? And there's several bands and singers that were involved, and I didn't have time to look it up.
In Jimmy's defense, it's not always like father, like son.
That's what I've been told. But
Val Kilmer also played an amazing Jim Morrison.
Oh yeah,
looked just like him,
and sounded like him.
Rest in peace.
The members of the Doors couldn't tell which scenes were actually him singing and Jim singing. So
hot take: I hate the Doors music.
Really? I love them. I've always loved the Doors.
Right.
But, different strokes for different folks, man.
That's what Jolly West said. But yeah. Man, this has been great. We're going to pick a new topic for the next show. We don't know what that's going to be yet, but you are the host of a new podcast.
Yeah.
Called the Appalachian Alliance. And you're also And
And I
working
don't
with your
and I
better
don't wear
half.
and I don't wear a tinfoil hat. It's have you ever it's a survivor watch podcast, right? Where we kind of break down the episode of CBS's Survivor, kind of in an Appalachian point of view, right? A lot of times they'll bring these folks out that have no idea how to survive, right? Their grandpas didn't tell them to live, taught them how to live off the land, right? Like you and I,
Oh,
right?
I wish me. I mean, mine did, and I just didn't listen.
Well,
like,
right,
whatever.
yeah. I mean, it's it is what it is, but they don't have that training, right? And a lot of times, we poke fun at these folks, and we have a good time at it. My good friend Mitchell Church is the co-host.
Shout out.
And yep, what's up, Mitchell? And my wife steps in every once in a while when Mitchell's unavailable. And that, it's a fun kind of a podcast. My wife has a podcast. I actually produce it. I'm on it every once in a while. I'll chime in. Sometimes I'll be involved in some interviews, and I'll produce the back half of it usually. But her and her attorney friend Elise Keaton does a podcast called Appalachian Living. So go check those out. That one is it's just about life in Appalachia and the good and the bad, right? Everything that encompasses the culture of Appalachia.
Yep. And
So-
Lindsay is an amazing person, and the whole family's just, I'm glad to know y'all. Y'all
Yeah,
are just so talented.
Well, we try, and we're proud to know y'all. I mean, your wife, of course, is a pillar of the community here in the area, and the great work that she does at the NRGRDA. Is that
NRGRDA. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, I just
Not affiliated with Creepalachia.
right, but that's what Jenna does, and she does it well.
And she's my sugar mama.
That's right, and you guys,
I'm down the basement with a tinfoil hat on.
Yeah, she allows that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
God
great.
bless her.
Yeah.
And mine too. She puts up with a lot of crap. So God bless them.
Yeah, and also we haven't announced publicly yet, but you are the assistant director for the Mothman Prophets now,
I am.
and Lindsay is the producer.
Yeah.
And we are, I can't be happier than to have you on. You're setting off fire alarms.
You don't know what you got yourself into, my friend. Now, yeah, we did a little screen test. I'm also an instructor of multimedia down at Wyoming County at the Wyoming County Career and Technical Center, where I don't talk about conspiracy and all of these things, of course. But I thought it'd be fun for the kids to see a screen test of some practical effects, right? And I okayed it. Everybody involved knew what was happening, and I said, I may set off a fire alarm, and I absolutely did. And
so people know fog machines do set off fire alarms.
yes, at least this one did, because it is industrial size.
Dude, it started going off. I was like, "Whoa, that's some fog."
Yeah,
That's capital F.
Well, I was like, it's not working, and I kept hitting the button,
like,
and then it just erupted, and there was nothing I can do about it.
Oh, man.
But I digress.
If anything, we're gonna have some fun.
And yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks
All right.
thanks for being here,
Well,
sir.
I'm gonna go outside, so I gotta put my hat back on. That way the 5G doesn't get me.
Yep. Don't let those waves hit y'all and everyone else. Before you leave, be sure to like this video. Subscribe to Creepalachia on YouTube if you haven't already. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, take a minute, leave a review. Let me know how you like the show. That'll really help the show be found. And don't forget, we are on Facebook and on TikTok. And be sure to check out Appalachian Living and Appalachian Alliance. Super good, high quality podcasts featuring my dude here. And everyone else, above all else, always remember, long live Appalachia.